Now let's look at problem 4 from the review problems. That's the chicken one. So we've got the situation where it costs 14 cents per chicken to vaccinate the chicken. If you vaccinate them, then their eggs will not be infected. You are told the total amount of money that it would cost to vaccinate all the chickens in the country, in addition to this 14 cents per bird. So problem A asks you how many chickens there are, and you should be able to get this by combining these two statistics. These two numbers are not really statistics. You take the $31 million, that's 31,000,000, and you're saying each chicken costs 14 cents to vaccinate. So how many 14 cents are there in $31 million? And be careful, you don't want to combine cents and dollars in a problem. So notice that I wrote this as dollars 0.14. So I want to take that $31 million and divide that by the 14 cents per chicken to say how many 14 cents is in $31 million, and you will get 220 million. Sorry, just checking. Chickens. Quick reality check moment. Does this make sense? It's got to be bigger than 31 million because it costs less than $1 to vaccinate each chicken. So for $31 million, I can get more than 31 million chickens. And indeed, this is a lot more than 31 million. So that doesn't tell me it's right, but at least it tells me it passes a basic reality check. Now the next question, if we're doing this, the concern is it's going to raise the price of eggs. So how much will it raise the price of eggs? Well, we've got two useful facts here. We know how many eggs a chicken lays, and we know how much it costs to vaccinate that chicken. So this tells us we can spend 14 cents to protect 270 eggs. So one way to do this would be to say, what is the cost per egg? And you get that by taking the cost, 14 cents, and dividing by, because per tells you to divide by, the number of eggs that 14 cents can protect, 270 eggs. And if you do that, you will see that, excuse me, I don't have my calculator in front of me, and I calculated it slightly differently on my solutions. You will see that it costs a tiny amount of money. 0.00, let me make sure I get the right number of zeros, $0.005 or 5/100ths of a cent per egg. Okay, let's turn that into the cost for a dozen eggs in order to make more sense out of it. So if I want to turn that into a dozen eggs, I would take that tiny cost per egg and multiply it by the fact that there are 12 eggs in one dozen. That's what, yep, that should say dozen, sorry. That's what dozen means. So if I take that number and I multiply it by 12, I get, and this is dollars now, dollars per dozen, because my eggs are canceling out, and I get $0.006 per dozen egg, or about half a cent. That is tiny. Another way you could have done this would be to figure out how many dozen eggs there are directly. That is, how many dozen are there in 270, and take my 14 cents and divide by the number of dozen eggs. That would also work. It should get you to the same place. Now we're going to do part C, in which I add one more piece of information. I add the population of the United States. And now I want to know how many eggs each person eats over the course of a year. So this is a two-part thing. I first need to know how many eggs there are in total, and I'm going to use this fact that a chicken lays 270 eggs, and this fact the number of chickens and multiply those together. Is that how many eggs there are in a year? Well, this problem told me that in these large factory farms, those chickens lay eggs for 1 year. So that's plausible. So the answer to this one would be to take my 220 million chickens and multiply that by the fact that each chicken lays 270 eggs per chicken. And if I do that, then my chickens are going to cancel out and leave me with the number of eggs, and I will get 59,400,000, or this is millions, this is billions, about 60 billion eggs laid every year. 59,400,000,000. Now, to turn that into a number of eggs per person, I'm going to need to take this number of, I forgot a unit, this number of eggs and divide by the number of people. So this number here was eggs in the US. If I take eggs, and I divide by people, then I will get the answer that I am looking for, the eggs per person. Remember, as always, per means divided by. So the number of eggs per person would be this idiotically large number of eggs. Sorry, I'm just having a hard time conceiving of 59 billion with a B eggs divided by 300 million people. And as we will actually be talking about more later on when we talk about scientific notation, the first thing I would do if I was calculating this is strike out a whole bunch of zeros, because otherwise I am going to lose count of my zeros when I go to type them into my calculator. And what I end up with is about 198 eggs per person. So that's less than 1 egg per day, but more than 1 egg every other day, which might seem like a large number, but do remember that there's eggs in lots of things that we eat, that it's not just eggs themselves. So those are the solutions to problem 4. Hope that helps.